it's not too bad. This one looks good. This one, pretty good. Oh, hey guys, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out my cosplay for 3.16 because of the changes that are coming to Ignites from this manifesto. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much, but my redemption arc is here. If anyone remembers my discharge build from back in, oh, when was that? Like Ritual League or something like that. I think it's back, and maybe back better than ever. But today, we've got part 3 of the manifesto to talk about. Now, it's not just based on elemental damage over time right here. This is also based on auras and curses, and we're going to talk about those and go over absolutely everything in here. But you can probably see I'm fairly elated right now, fairly excited. That's not at all because of auras and curses. That's entirely because of the massive buffs to Ignite coming, and I'll talk about that exactly because there are some nerfs as well. But first of all, let's jump into it. So we've had the flask and ailment mitigation so far. We've had the core character defenses yesterday, and today is the last part 3 of the manifesto coming of the Path of Exile balance. And in traditional GGG fashion, we've got the problem versus solution kind of outline right here. Now, there isn't actually as much as other times through here in terms of just standard problems and solutions, but there are a ton of specifics. So we're still not going to dive into absolutely everything, but I'm going to be picking out my, I've read through this about 2 times already. I'm going to be picking my main things that I really enjoy and really dislike about this. If there is anything I super dislike, personally, I don't think there's anything that's massively dislikable about what's going on here for me. But let me know in the comments down below what you think, and also hit that sub button if you do enjoy this content. I'm very excited for this league now, and we're going to be putting out some pretty cool build guides coming into 3.16 with Ignites, so get ready for those. Anyway, let's jump into it. Support characters. We'll start with this: auras and other reservation effects. Problem. The reduced reservation stat provides very little benefit at low values, but becomes very powerful when heavily invested in. This allows players to run every aura in the game. It also forces reduced reservation to be balanced around extreme levels of investment, limiting how useful it can be to characters that do not run enormous numbers of reservation skills. Finally, characters that heavily invested in reduced reservation in order to run more skills on mana were also able to reserve life extremely efficiently as well, with no further investment, rendering this the only sensible way to play the most heavily reservation-focused builds. And look, this is really true. It became a little bit strange when things had to be balanced around the top end of auras, in terms of, you know, the alternate quality auras that came through in Heist League, and then they got massively nerfed in the next Ritual League, because every aura stacker would take these and scale them to immense amounts, and they had to be balanced around being scaled to absolutely immense amounts. So the solution was to replace reservation reduction with reservation efficiency. So when stacked, reservation efficiency does not allow for infinite auras. This can be given out much more liberally as a result, letting characters run additional reservation effects with only a couple of sources of reservation efficiency. The average character benefits, but the top end of extreme reservation has been made significantly weaker. So this is very much balancing this kind of, I guess, the 0.1 percenters to the standard players or something like that, giving a little bit more power. So most builds that, you know, maybe spec into 1 or 2 wheels might be able to run an extra aura than what they would previously, which is more power, which is great. But the top ends are significantly nerfed. Now, reservation efficiency works by dividing the cost of reservation effects. So 100% increased reservation efficiency would have halved the cost of all auras. So it's basically, it's basically exactly what it says, reservation efficiency. So if you are reserving 50% mana and you have 100% reservation efficiency, that's going to reserve 25% mana instead. So that's actually really, really nice. It means that, you know, you get 200% reservation efficiency. I think that goes down to probably 12.5%. 300% goes down to 6.75%. You know, it keeps halving type of thing. So you are never going to be able to get to that 0% reservation. Now, there's a ton of, you know, information about all the passives that are changing and everything like that, but there are some changes to unique items at the bottom here as well. Say, for example, Prism Guardian, which is a pretty big one. Socketed gems have 30% increased reservation efficiency instead of have 25% reduced reservation. Now, this is a massive change. This is actually a huge, huge change for a lot of builds, but also all of these changes are very similar to this. It's just changing your reservation efficiency from reduced reservation, around about a 1.5 times value type of thing. Not quite. Anywhere from 25% to a 33% type of change. All right, let's move on because there's way too much information there. All right, curses. Oh wait, no, not curses yet. We still got one more. Characters specializing in maximizing the power of auras provide an absolutely insane amount of damage and defense to party members, making a party with aura specialized characters so much more effective than one without. So the solution was to remove sources of aura effect from cluster jewels and move the aura cluster jewels type to small cluster jewels, so it is no longer possible to continuously stack aura effect for your party. Introduce a new cluster jewel notable to increase the effect of auras for you for builds that are building auras for their own power. So this is taking massive power out of high-end aura bots for parties. Sorry, MP. But it's also hopefully keeping that same-ish kind of power for aura stackers that are doing it for themselves. Now, obviously, aura stackers are never going to be as powerful as they were, even though they still weren't that powerful because of the amount of investment anyway. But you've got the, let me just see if I have a look at here. Cluster jewel notable passives that grant reduced reservation to specific auras instead now grant high amounts of reservation efficiency to that aura, as well as improving the secondary bonus the notable gave. Here we go. Cluster jewel notable passive skills have had all aura effect removed. The increased aura effect from auras on you and the purposeful harbinger cluster jewel notable now only applies to your own aura's effect on you. And then the Master of Command cluster jewel notable passive now grants 10% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skill on enemies. Previously 15. So I guess that's... Wait. From your skill on enemy. A new cluster jewel notable has been added that grants 10% increased effect of auras on you. So yeah, it's... Look, all I can really say is I don't know the numbers just yet. I'm not going to fully say that aura stacking or aura bots are dead in any way, but high end of this is very much been dumpstered. They're really not enjoying that kind of gameplay, I guess, so yeah. Curses, let's move on. Curses are in a similar spot in terms of getting very heavily nerfed. Problem, characters specialized in maximizing... Oh, sorry. Heavily nerfed in stacking heaps and heaps of curses. Characters that specialized in maximizing the number and power of curses provide far too much damage and defense to party members, like before with the auras, making party with a curse specialized character so much more effective than one without. So the solution was to make curse cluster jewels a small cluster jewel, with many of the notables reworked to benefit specific clusters as curses significantly, greatly improving a regular character wanting to maximize their curse of choice. Now this is really, really good for something like an occultist who wants to take 1, 2, 3 curses, wants to maximize those curses, like 1 or 2 of them, make a crazy temp change that's just going to slow everything, but make significant changes to a Doedri's skin as it applies many curses at almost no cost. So yeah, heaps of changes here, but the Doedri skin now grants hexes from socketed skills can apply 5 additional curses. It previously granted hexes from socketed skills ignore curse limit. This is so replica Doedri's damning has some downside with using it. It now grants 20% less effect of your curses for all skills, instead of reduced curse effect of socketed skills triggered with the summon Doedri's efficacy skill. So this is going to mean that stacking a bunch of increased curse effect, this is going to multiplicatively, or divide that, I guess. Multiplicatively scale down that instead of just, applying a little bit of reduced curse effect. The summon Doedri's effigy skill now has a short cast time, previously instant, and its cooldown has been removed, previously 0.5 seconds, and now has a mana cost. So this is meaning that you can't just chuck it on left click and just walk around anymore and just be like a walking bot. So big nerf changes to curse bots right there. But let's get into the meat of this. The meat for me. I know that was probably the meat for a lot of other people who enjoy that kind of gameplay. I hate that gameplay. So this is where the meat is. Elemental damage over time for me. As we know, I'm a little bit of a pyromaniac nut. And I'm very excited, so let's go. Problem. The elemental damage over time effects of cold damage over time, burning, and ignite are too dependent on elemental overload and elemental equilibrium. Ignites are too dependent on ignite damage multipliers on skills, making skills without ignite multipliers too weak to use ignite with. So just from this, you can see that GGG is wanting to open up everything. More skills to ignite. Do you know what this really does mean? This really means that Elementalist is going to be busted. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So the solution: greatly improve the base strength of Ignite, burning and cold damage over time, while making Elemental Overload and Elemental Equilibrium less powerful or require more investment with damage over time skills. Rebalance skills that could apply Ignite effects around the new base damage of Ignite and remove the Ignite damage multipliers. So, this is really, really huge here, but I'm going to pick out some important things here. So first of all, right up the top here, insanely massive. Player Ignite now inherently deals 150% more damage than before. So it's previously 50% of base damage over 4 seconds, now it's 125% of base damage over 4 seconds. This is huge, this is absolutely massive. What this does is it opens up Elementalist to basically use any skill in the entire game to ignite with and deal great damage. And I'll talk about that a little bit more further down, but if Ignite is not the meta, if Elementalist is not back into the top played ascendancy, I will eat my own shorts. Like our classic Bort Samson does. Now, let's just move on to cold damage over time. So, there's been a buff to all cold damage over time skills, or most of them, I think, dealing approximately, I think about 50% more damage at gem level 20 in terms of their cold damage. Now, 50% more damage, and then with the nerfs to what's going to be coming to Elemental Equilibrium Overload, cold damage is probably going to be in the same spot, I would say. It's really hard right now without fully delving into it, but TLDR, I think cold damage is just kind of okay. It's good. However, burning skills now deal more damage. Burning skills have also received around about a 50% more damage buff. Things like Searing Bond is now going to be usable as a support skill on Ignite builds. I would definitely consider Searing Bond, dealing almost 4,000 damage per second. Scorching Ray is going to be dealing a ton more as well, around about 50% more damage right there. Another one that you could do on Ignite builds, you know, do your Ignite and then Scorching Ray for exposure. Really, really good. Righteous Fire now deals, around about more than 50% more damage. It now also deals 35% of life and energy shields base fire damage per second, previously 20. So a lot harder to sustain, but if you can get Righteous Fire working well, Righteous Fire is really, really strong now. So keep an eye on Captain Lance for Righteous Fire, because I am sure Captain Lance is going to be making this skill work really, really well, and will be dominating the entire game with it. Captain Lance, if you're watching, big love to you, dude. Love your content. Val Righteous Fire now deals 125% of sacked energy shield, previously 80, up to 158, previously 99. So they're nerfing this even more. Now, Fire Trap is getting massively, massively buffed in its damage over time. Fire Trap could potentially even be a nice single target skill. Flame Wall is being buffed as well. It's once again, it's all about 50% more damage around the board, and Infernal Legion support is going to be really, really, really nice to level with. I think Popcorn Infernal Legion Skeletons or Summon Raging Spirits is going to be one of the best leveling skills, and I might even do that on an Ignite build. Now, there's also a ton of changes to other skills, other fire skills, which is kind of insane. That, like, I don't really know how to tackle this right here. But because of the changes of 150% more damage than before on Ignite, the first lines of everything here, it's kind of taking all of these Ignite scalings from a lot of these skills. However, you want to be looking at the end of all of this. So Ignite with Fireball is now 33% higher. Ignite with Vile Fireball is now 33% higher. Ignite with Discharge is now 60% higher. Now, let me talk about this when we come to Elemental Overload. I'll come back to Discharge because it's my favorite skill in the entire game, and I'm probably league starting it, blah, 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 blah. Badge's Redemption Arc, etc., etc. Flame Blast, 75% more damage at 10 stages. Vile Flame Blast, 81% more damage at 10 stages. This is so bonkers. Vile Flame Blast will be the best day 1, day 2 single target boss killer in the entire game. There is no doubt about this. It is disgusting. The This should be the meta, and if it's not the meta, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, Incinerate will be dealing 45.8% more damage than before. And blah, 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 working down. Now, Anomalous Firestorm, it no longer grants seconds to base duration or impact, dealing more damage with hits and elements. Now grants chance to ignite enemies, but because of the base ignite damage changes, ignite with the skill is now 150% more, 150% higher. So Anomalous Firestorm might actually be here. It might actually be back. We'll see. We'll see. Fireburst also got changed. Fireburst ignite damage is now 67.5% higher. Fireburst is actually back in the game. Fireburst ignite 100% back in the game. Everything is just... Ugh. Anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of it, but we are going to talk about Elemental Overload and Elemental Equilibrium. The Elemental Overload Keystone passive skill now grants more hit and element damage to skills if they crit in the last 8 seconds. This means that you can't use a second rapidly hitting skill, making a small amount of critical chance investment much more important to skills taking advantage of Elemental Overload. Now, with Discharge, I wanted to talk about Discharge here because Discharge is a really, really awesome skill that to utilize correctly, you're going to be scaling, primarily you're going to be scaling endurance and power charges, and then you can also scale frenzy charges as well if you want to for the ignite on Elementalist. Now, you're going to be getting around about 7 to 9 power charges, and on Discharge, 7 to 9 power charges is around about 30-35% chance to crit. You're going to be casting Discharge every 2 to 3 seconds. If you've got 35% chance to crit every 2 to 3 seconds, Discharge will be critting once every 8 seconds. You will have Elemental Overload still up. So it's actually no nerf whatsoever to Discharge. Basically what they said to me right here is, hey, your build just got a 60% damage increase. I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. The only nerf is Elemental Equilibrium, but that can be worked around with other stuff. Now, Elemental Equilibrium has been changed. It now applies 25% exposure of the elements not hit with, removing exposure of the elements you do hit with. It's now an easy way to apply a strong exposure effect rather than a huge damage boost that we balanced elemental damage over time skills around. Some other skills have been reviewed because of these changes. So it's also being moved to the Ranger section of the passive skill tree, which is really, really interesting right there. Elemental Equilibrium's being changed. So it's probably not going to be a thing that we're going to be taking in builds anymore. It used to give around about maybe 30 to 40% more damage, but that's because you would scale around Elemental Equilibrium. There are ways to not scale around that and instead scale around other ways of decreasing enemies' resistances or ignoring them or something like that. So really, I'm not too fussed whatsoever about that. Very, very intrigued. Plus, we're also getting a ton of more global damage over time multiplier increases, and some other really, really nice stuff like the Influence Boot mod being increased, the Influence Gloves and Amulets mods being increased. Basically, Ignite's it's just so good. Alright, let's move on from that, shall we? Badger excitement over, let's continue. Problem. Burning Arrow is too complex for a level 1 skill, so the solution was just to redesign the skill without a secondary stacking burn effect, but with a high added fire damage against ignited enemies. So basically, with all of these changes, Burning Arrow would have come back into the meta, Elementalist Burning Arrow, and they were like, wait a second, we're going to put this under the guise of it's too complex a skill. So they've changed it quite a bit. You can read on that if you want to. Problem, Ignite builds don't have a way to focus their damage on bosses, forcing balance to be the same for clear speed, damage, and boss damage. So the solution was to change Flame Surge and introduce a new attack-based mechanic to be able to deal much more burning damage to a targeted enemy. So Flame Surge is getting a new Burning Ground mechanic that deals damage based on ignites on the target. And they're also investigating a similar mechanic for attacks. So this is interesting. I don't know how this actually solves whatever problem this is, but yeah. Anyway, GGG, once again, they want to stress that this is not final. These are subject to change coming up to the patch notes and everything like that. But yeah, I'm really, really excited. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think I'm going to come back to streaming tomorrow because I'm way too excited and I want to talk about Ignites all day. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hit that sub button if you like it. Give the video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it as well. Let's wait for those build guides when patch notes do start to come out and everything like that. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And until next time, Badger is out.